This is one of the ways in which we can be there in a very real and tangible way. And that's why I would suggest, in dealing with this legislation, we should deal with it in the same format that we dealt with the first piece, Mr. Speaker, and allow it to pass relatively quickly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hate to interrupt the honourable member. The honourable member will have 8 minutes and 55 seconds left on the clock for him to continue debate. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, Brampton is one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, and housing is top of mind for our residents. That is why our government has taken a historical action to build 24,000 homes in next 10 years in Brampton. Mr. Speaker, $114 million from the Housing Accelerator Fund will allow the City of Brampton to expedite 3,150 units and build them within the next 3 years. This partnership with the City of Brampton and municipalities from across Canada will allow the removal of barriers of housing supply, accelerate the growth, and support the development of low-carbon and climate-resilient communities, which are affordable, inclusive, and diverse. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work hard to make them more affordable for Canadians from coast to coast, all the houses, which is more affordable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour two people without whom I would not be here today, Giuseppe and Alba Caputo. My parents were both born in the province of Cosenza in southern Italy. My grandfather, Pasquale Spina, first made the trip to Canada in 1952. He left behind my mother, 2-year-old Alba Liberetta, so named because her name means freedom at dawn, and he was freed as a POW in the early morning. My mother would follow with her mother in 1957, and my father arrived in Canada with his family in 1961. My father was a mill worker who displayed an unparalleled work ethic. After 2 shifts at his sawmill as a summer student, I knew I couldn't do the job he had done for 30 years. My sisters, Ellie and Rosie, are both teachers, and among the family, we count 8 degrees. As my mother once said, what would my grandfather say if he could see me in Parliament? I'm not sure, but today I say thank you to my parents for all their sacrifice.
The honourable member for Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, October is Latin American Heritage Month, a time to recognize the many contributions that Latin American communities have made and continue to make to the socio-economic development of Canada. Canadians of Latin American descent have enhanced the cultural mosaic of Canada through their artistic and culinary traditions. This month, we had many opportunities to discover the long and rich history of many Latin American communities here in Canada and celebrated their culture, resilience, and heritage. I would like to recognize Jaime Marulunda, editor of Eco Latino, and community leader Carolina Izaguirre Campos for their services to the community. I would like to thank Professor Luis Abanto, Chair of University of Ottawa's Department of Modern Languages and Literatures, for inviting me to a Latin American Heritage Day event. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Abitibi James Nunavik EU. Mr. Speaker, at the last ceremony held to mark the National Day of Recognition for Firefighters, the Government of Quebec honoured 5 firefighters from the Val d'Or Fire Department with the Meritorious Service Medal, following an event on April 14, 2022 in Val d'Or. Arriving at a 13-unit apartment building that was engulfed in flames, firefighters heard 2 people trapped by fire and smoke shouting for help. It was during this perilous operation that they were able to extricate the victims, one of whom was unconscious. Their heroic actions, physical exertion, and composure enabled them to evacuate the building and avoid the worst. I would like to thank and congratulate Operations Chief Yves Barbe and firefighters Jonathan Allary, Francis Duchesne, Christine Fortin-Chartier, and Tommy Joly for their courage, professionalism, teamwork, and speed of action. Congratulations on your well-deserved distinction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Halifax West. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to congratulate the Alliance Française Halifax on its 120th anniversary. Since 1903, the organization has promoted the French language in Halifax, promoting French culture and Acadian culture. 30 years ago, I started collaborating with them, and our work has continued since then. Their hard work leads to a stronger economy, better public services, and more opportunities for Canadians to forge deeper ties with one another. To the whole team, once again, congratulations on your many years of success and best wishes for the future. The Honourable Member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 long years, this NDP Liberal government creates so many questions for Canadians. Canadians question the charade of a 12-month price freeze that retailers have imposed on producers, which will only see major price increases later, just so the Prime Minister can put this problem off until after the next election. Canadians want to know how these suppliers absorb the increase in the carbon tax applied at every step of the food value chain. How do producers absorb the costs of higher interest rates and unthought-through label and inspection charges imposed by the CFIA? Why is this government allowing a price ceiling to be imposed by retailers on suppliers who are forced to absorb these costs? Why not instead remove or reduce the costs? This Prime Minister is all hat and no cattle, and not worth the cost. Canadians want to know, and Canadians want this Prime Minister to go.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, in 1996, I joined residents of Upper Stony Creek in East Hamilton in opposition to the planned operation of the Terrell landfill. Against stiff opposition to the plan, the Conservative Premier of Ontario, Mike Harris, approved its operation. Fast forward a quarter century, and with the landfill poised to close in 2019, Premier Ford ignored overwhelming community opposition and approved its expansion and continued operation for another decade. This past summer was unbearable for Stony Creek residents. Odors from the expanded landfill prevented residents from enjoying their properties and local parks, and many were physically affected by its operation. Mr. Speaker, Ontario's provincial government has yet to act, and I rise today to voice my support for local residents who've called upon Premier Ford and other elected representatives to immediately close the landfill until the company implements measures to eliminate odors at the site.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize the steadfast and dedicated team at Creek 53, a conservancy trust based in my community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Made up of landowners, trustees, academics, and environmental stewards, the team at Creek 53 are working towards the environmental preservation of the Hudson Escarpment and the Creek 53 watershed, an area rich in biodiversity located in Hudson.
This initiative was made possible thanks to the vision and hard work of administrators Richard Atler, Bernard Boy, Christopher Buttle, Lindsay Dayu, and Brian Grubert. Thanks to them, the generosity of donors who shared their vision, Creek 53 ensures that this magnificent ecosystem supports research, education, and awareness, and that future generations will be able to benefit.
Everyone who calls Vaudreuil-Soulanges I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the volunteers, the supporters, the trustees at Creek 53, who are pioneers not just in conservation, but in truly living the ethos of environmental harmony and preservation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Speaker, young Canadians can't afford to move out of their parents' home, but now seniors are forced to sell their homes because they can't afford them anymore. After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, inflation is so high that Canadians who have worked for decades, saved up for their retirement, and contributed their entire lives are forced to sell their homes. Worse than that, they can't even afford to rent. The Prime Minister needs to admit to Canadians that this so-called Sunny Ways policies have cost seniors their retirement. With housing costs more than doubling, they can no longer afford to live in their homes. Many are trying to re-enter the workforce, even those who've been retired for more than 10 years. Why? To pay for the basics, food and rent. Mr. Speaker, common sense Conservatives will start by capping spending and bring inflation and interest rates down so that people can keep their homes. It's now obvious to the young people who can't afford to move out. It's painfully obvious to the parents who have to move back in with their kids. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From Apple to Disney to the CBC, the film industry has noticed Newfoundland and Labrador, our talent, our creativity, and our beautiful backdrops. I had the privilege of joining the Minister of Rural Economic Development and the Minister responsible for Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency this past week in St. John's East to announce $1.5 million for Picture NL and the Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Cooperative, NIFCO. This funding will help the film industry in our province even further, keeping their competitive advantage so the next great production chooses Newfoundland and Labrador as their cast of characters. The film industry is worth over $9 billion in Canada, and we have approximately 1,400 full-time jobs in the province. With this funding, our government is continuing on our commitment to an industry that has become an integral part of our community. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi, Le Fjord. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, the cost of living is only increasing. The deficit is causing record levels of inflation. Quebecers are becoming poorer from day to day. While people are unable to make ends meet, the Liberals find that it's the perfect time to increase the burden on Quebecers by increasing the carbon tax 2.0 that applies to Quebec and that adds 17 cents per litre at the pump. It's no surprise that the Bloc is supporting the Liberals because they no longer know the reality of Quebecers who are suffering. Not only do they agree with the tax, but these so-called defenders of Quebec say that they want to radically increase. It's expensive to vote Bloc. People have a hard time feeding themselves and housing themselves, and the only thing that the Liberal Bloc government is doing is increasing the tax that increases the cost of everything. The Conservative Party is the only party that will make life more affordable by abolishing the carbon tax and by bringing common sense home. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Imagine having lunch in a Jewish-owned business in downtown Toronto only to be shouted at because you're Jewish. Imagine being harassed outside your children's school where you've been told that they would be safe as they are escorted in by uniformed police officers. Imagine being told you shouldn't come to the office on a Monday morning, or maybe it would be wise to take off the religious identifier that was meant to signify your faith off your front door because it would make you a target. You don't have to imagine it. It's all happening here, and it's further fueled by the irresponsible statements pushed by the Prime Minister, who 6 days after repeating Hamas's talking points still hasn't corrected the record. Imagine being terrified in your own community and having a Prime Minister who hasn't said a word about it. Quite the opposite. He took the word of a terrorist organization over his own militaries and our allies and still hasn't retracted his statement.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellat. Mr. Speaker, October 24th is Brain Cancer Awareness Day in Canada. Thanks to the Hats for Hope campaign, this date has become a symbol of solidarity in the face of this devastating disease. Every day is a struggle for patients, but support and hope grow every year. Tomorrow, wear a hat or a sweatshirt, take a photo, share it on social media, and be a force for hope. Let's pay tribute to all those who bravely face brain tumors, like my beloved mother, in whose memory I make this statement. This life-altering disease can impair vision, hearing, memory, balance, and mobility, leaving lasting physical and emotional effects. Thank you to the Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada for its hard work in helping patients and families and advancing the search for a cure. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Humanity faces unprecedented danger from climate change and biodiversity loss. Yet, while the Earth is on fire, government's inaction is equivalent to pouring gasoline on the flames. This past summer, the CEO of Suncor made troubling remarks about the need to maximize profits in an industry that has seen record profits over the last 2 years. CEOs of big oil companies rate in billions of dollars, while communities across Canada were ravaged by forest fires. These companies are taking no responsibility for their decades-long pollution. The Liberals have given big oil free rein to fuel the climate crisis and maximize profits. The NDP wants to see an end to subsidies and stronger emissions caps on these big oil and gas companies to stop their decades-long free ride. It is time to end their greed and protect the future of our planet.
Order. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Neigette, Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 25th anniversary of Érudit, a Quebec flagship for the dissemination of scientific knowledge in French. Érudit is a digital platform for promoting scientific publications, created thanks to the vision and genius of a consortium comprising the Université de Montréal, Université Laval, and the Université du Québec à Montréal. Today, it offers 250,000 publications from 35 disciplines in the humanities, social sciences, arts, and literature to over 5 million users worldwide. And the best part is that the vast majority of this content is offered in French, free of charge to everyone. Érudit is therefore an invaluable way to showcase our researchers and the knowledge they produce, and enables Quebec to shine throughout the French-speaking world. Let's be proud of Érudit for 25 years of service to science in French. Congratulations and long life to this Quebec jewel. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
This Liberal NDP government is once again in the midst of scandal and criminal investigation. The RCMP are currently investigating allegations of identity theft, forged resumes, contractual theft, fraudulent billing, price fixing, and collusion in the creation of the $54 million ArriveCan app. 2 whistleblowers trapped in this scandal came forward to the media. This is the only reason we now know, as government officials were forced by their political masters to lie to Canadians about this contract. This investigation was hidden by GC Strategies, the Canada Board of Services Agency, numerous Liberal ministers during our study last year. They deliberately withheld the truth from this House and from Canadians. This Liberal NDP government will engage in criminal behavior to pay their friends millions and continue their cover-up before they tell the truth. This Prime Minister once again shows that he is not worth the cost.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, last week I counted 158 times Conservatives claimed things that demonstrated they were, let's say, factually perplexed. Like that Liberal NDP agreement 18 months ago that delivers important help for Canadians, Conservatives turned that into a coalition. Then they mutated that into a Liberal NDP government. Then they said an 8-year Liberal NDP government. Really? We've told them a million times, quit exaggerating. They blame a price on pollution for high food prices. I checked. No big grocery CEOs are selling pencils on street corners. And sorry, there's no $120 Tory turkey driving those mega grocery profits either. Conservatives preach again and again and again that deficits, less than 1% of Canada's GDP, mind you, drive inflation. Either they don't really know what causes inflation, which makes these Conservatives far too risky, or they do know, and they're deliberately, dangerously deceptive.
Questions orales, oral questions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, housing has doubled in cost, and now CMHC has said that there has been a 63% increase in the number of Canadians that use alternative loans. They pay up to 15% in interest for these alternative mortgages. Will the Prime Minister finally change his inflationary ways so that the Bank of Canada can reduce interest rates so that Canadians can keep their houses? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague across the way claims that he and his party want to march towards prosperity, but that would be through austerity. Canadians know that all the Conservatives represent is to chop things up. Chop, 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 Mr. Speaker. Chopping funding for small craft ports, chopping in various programs that our communities need. The Conservative Party is like being a shark that claims to be vegetarian. They're not credible at all. They are not worth the risk, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are already living through austerity. They have to chop, chop, chop their own personal budgets, groceries, gas, and now their homes. There's now a new phenomenon. Seniors, middle-class seniors, find themselves homeless after the doubling of housing costs. A man in Calgary saw a $1,600 increase in his housing costs, and now he cannot find a place to rent. Will the government finally change its mind so we can reduce interest rates so that our seniors can keep a roof over their heads? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was saying, Mr. Speaker, I'm sad to announce that on the other side of the House, they seem to have a cracked crystal ball. They want to cut everywhere. They're even cutting into their crystal balls now. They have no plan. They have no vision, Mr. Speaker. And so, please ask them to fix their crystal balls so that they can better see in the future. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled. Now we see that there's been a 63% increase in the number of Canadians who are going to alternative lenders to get mortgages because they can no longer get approved by the main banks. That means interest rates as high as 15% per year. We haven't seen those types of rates since the last Trudeau was in power. Will the Prime Minister reverse his inflationary spending in the upcoming fall economic update so that we can bring down interest rates and our Canadian people can keep their homes?
Mr. Speaker, it's important that you understand that the Honourable Member's plan to actually have more homes built seems to be to cut funding to build those homes. I was in Brampton last week where we announced $114 million that's going to help Brampton build more than 24,000 homes over the next decade. He plans to cut it. When it comes to getting more homes built, we're removing the GST on new apartments in this country. He plans to put it back on. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to make the investments necessary. We agree that there are people struggling. The difference between us is we have a problem a solution to the problem.
Absolutely right that he has a problem that he and his government created. After 8 years, this Prime Minister has doubled rent, doubled mortgage payments, and now his plan is a $4 billion program that 2 years in has not built a single solitary home, and he wants to target tax benefits for the construction of $10 million penthouse apartments. Will they instead reverse their inflationary spending so we can bring down interest rates and let Canadians keep their homes?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
Mr. Speaker, you want to talk about housing program delivery? When he was the minister, he had $300 million go towards the building of only 99 homes over years, Mr. Speaker. We're continuing to roll out programs that are literally changing the ways that cities build homes. We have helped build or repair nearly 500,000 homes through the National Housing Strategy, which his party voted against. He's now opposing measures that's going to make it cheaper to build the homes that Canadians need. We're going to get it done by continuing to incentivize home building, supporting the people who are going to put roofs over the heads of our neighbors. It's the right thing to do. It's a shame that he opposes it.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Speaker, after 8 years, the national housing strategy of which he speaks has doubled housing costs. Yeah. It doubled the cost of mortgages, rent, and down payments. And yes, it costs many millions more than what we spent when we were in government, but we delivered housing that was half the cost of what it is today. Now on to restaurants. Today we learned that 1/3 of restaurants are losing money. That leaves them 3 choices: shut down, cut wages, or raise prices on Canadians. Will the government reverse the carbon taxes and the inflationary increases to interest rates that are forcing our restaurants to go under and costing waitresses and servers their jobs?
L'honorable ministre.
Mr. Speaker, as a former small business owner myself, I know that small businesses are the backbone of these communities. And as a small business owner, I'm glad the Conservatives are not in charge. Small businesses wouldn't be saving $1 billion in credit card transaction fees. Women entrepreneurs would not have $7 billion of investment through our women entrepreneurship strategy, nor the $10 a day childcare that has put more women into the workforce. Conservatives have been voting against these efforts to support small businesses, including women entrepreneurs, and they are not worth the risk.
L'honorable député de La Prairie.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, 250,000 businesses risk going out of business as early as 2024 if the government does not postpone repayment of the emergency account loans. Imagine the impact if we were to lose 250,000 businesses at the same time. So it's not surprising that on Friday all the premiers of Quebec and other provinces wrote to this government. They demanded a 1-year postponement of the repayment deadline for our businesses without losing the non-repayable part. The premiers are unanimous. The premiers are responsible. Will the government respect their request? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we offer extra flexibility for small businesses to repay their loans, which includes a full 1-year extension, more flexibility for repayment modalities, which constitutes an approach that is balanced and fiscally responsible. We continue to listen to small businesses throughout the country. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, once again, this government can't see beyond the end of its nose. That's not what businesses are asking for. They're asking for a 1-year extension for their loans. Does the government really think that these businesses will pay their loans back any faster? If these businesses close, how many workers will end up on EI? Has the government calculated that? Mr. Speaker, the premiers of Quebec and the provinces are unanimous. They have all understood that we have no choice. When will this government finally understand that this is completely logical? The Honourable Minister. Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. And as he knows full well, most businesses have said if our government hadn't been there during the pandemic, many businesses would have had to close their doors. We had a solution, a flexible solution that meets our fiscal framework and will continue to be here for businesses on many affairs. We have made historic investments in businesses in Quebec and will continue to do so. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Israeli families have lived with the pain of loved ones either killed or still held hostage. In the last 2 weeks, the situation in Gaza has grown dire. Humanitarian aid is trickling in. Thousands have been killed, many children. Diverse voices are calling for a ceasefire, including the head of the UN, Canadian aid agencies, and even some Liberal MPs. Will the Prime Minister join the NDP's call for a ceasefire now.
L'honorable ministre du Développement international.
The deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza was dire before these last weeks. We are doing everything that we can to support Canadians on the ground. We're also committed to working diplomatically to prevent the conflict from spreading. We're working with our allies to ensure the protection of all Israeli and Palestinian civilians. We're calling and have been consistently calling on international humanitarian law to be respected. We were the first government to move to provide substantial humanitarian aid to both Israeli and Palestinian civilians, and we will continue our efforts in that regard.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
Les attaques.
Hamas terrorist attacks continue. Rockets are being sent on civilians. And in Gaza, the humanitarian situation is getting worse and worse. More Israelis and Palestinians are losing their lives in this horrible war. When will the government finally take its role seriously in protecting innocents? And when will it finally ask for a ceasefire? The Honourable Minister for International Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Active from the very beginning, we were the first Western country to provide an initial amount of $10 million to go to humanitarian assistance, and recently we announced an additional $50 million, Mr. Speaker, bringing the Canadian total to $60 million. We've been consistent in the call to respect international humanitarian law by all parties in this conflict, and we have been consistently working very hard with our friends and allies in the region to make sure that the humanitarian corridors are not only open, but that they're maintained and that essential life-saving supplies get through on a daily basis. Merci.
L'honorable député de Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, nearly half of all Canadians with a mortgage say that they're having a tough time paying it. The Prime Minister told us interest rates would stay low forever, but his reckless spending and higher taxes have caused rates to skyrocket faster than ever. Now struggling families are paying the price. Young people can't even imagine getting in. There is a mortgage crisis on the horizon until this Prime Minister reins it in. When will he stop the inflationary deficits and balance the budget so that Canadians can keep their homes?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
Mr. Speaker, when I hear the Conservatives make arguments that we should be spending less in the context of housing, I would point out to them that it takes investments to build the housing necessary to put a roof over the same Canadians' heads that she seems concerned about. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, we're cutting the tax on new apartment construction in this country. They want to put it back on. We are moving forward with a plan to fund cities so they build more homes. They plan to cut it. When we put measures on the floor of the House of Commons to support some of society's most vulnerable, they vote against it. Every step of the way they try to block progress for people, we're going to advance it at all costs.
L'honorable député de Thornhill.
That's false, Mr. Speaker. They act like everything's okay. They haven't built a single home with their accelerator fund. But the number of people who are paying their mortgage, the number of people who say that they're paying their mortgage is very difficult, has doubled in 6 months. And as mortgage payments and anxiety go up, Canadians cut back on essentials like food and home heating. Mr. Speaker, you shouldn't have to choose between heating your home and putting food on the table. But that's the reality after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Canadians are realizing that he's not worth the cost. Will this minister finally realize that too?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
Mr. Speaker, part of the reasons it's difficult to find affordable housing in this country is because for 30 years, federal governments in Canada failed to make the investments necessary, including the previous Conservative government. When they were last in power, Mr. Speaker, this country lost 800,000 homes that were on the market at affordable prices. We're going to continue to make the investments necessary to get more homes built. I would ask the honourable member in response to her question why she wants to raise taxes on home building and cut funding for home builders. Mr. Speaker, we need to make the investments necessary to build homes in this country, and that is exactly what we're going to do.
Once again, I'll ask all members, even those who are not sitting in their normal seats, to please listen to the response, and when they have the floor, they'll be able to ask the questions. The honourable member from Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, spending is out of control and inflationary deficit are pushing up mortgage costs. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says the deficit this year will increase to over $46 billion, and everyone now agrees that spending is driving interest rates. Right. Every month, 70,000 households are renewing their mortgage, and they're realizing that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So will they rein in inflationary deficits, put forth a plan to balance the budget so Canadians can keep their homes?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker, I can speak to the fact that Canada has created over 1 million more jobs compared to pre-pandemic levels, has the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit in the G7, lower inflation than our comparative partners around the world, and the IMF and OECD project the strongest growth in 2024. We know that Canadians are struggling right now, but the real difference between us and the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, is that our government will not abandon people in need, like the Conservative leader has made abundantly clear time and time again.
L'honorable député de Simcoe Nord.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the government hasn't got the memo. Nobody cares about meaningless G7 comparative statistics. After 8 years of prolific spending, the bills are finally coming due. Right. The government borrowing is driving interest rates. This year, the government has to borrow $421 billion. Next year, the government has to borrow over $350 billion. That pushes up mortgage costs for everybody. So once again, will they acknowledge that they need to rein in their spending, produce a plan to balance the budget so that Canadians can keep their homes?
L'honorable ministre.
Mr. Speaker, I will share with you what Canadians and Albertans care about, and that is the Canada Pension Plan. And Mr. Speaker, after 3 weeks of silence on behalf of the Conservative leader, finally a comment on Danielle Smith's idea to take Albertans out of the CPP, a weak, timid response at that. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? 30 MPs from Alberta, Conservatives, every one of them, silent on the issue. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because they talk a big game in this House, but when it comes to defending Albertans and Canadians, they're silent. We're on the task. We're going to defend Albertans and the CPP.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, unfortunately we no longer recognise the Canada we were so proud of. Because rent is twice as much as before. More and more people are now forced to live where? In their cars. Mr. Speaker, in Canada, a G7 country, people living in a car? That makes no sense. But the Liberals' brilliant idea, supported by the Bloc Québécois' radical ideas, is to invent a new tax on carbon. That's not even a joke. Is there anyone in this government who thinks this finally makes no sense? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Many things in his question, but I'd like to start by saying that climate change isn't just taking care of the environment. That's what the Conservatives don't want to do in the first place, but it's also taking care of our transition economy. Fighting for climate change is creating jobs, and that is exactly what we're doing on this side of the House. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Well, she should go and knock on people's car windows and tell them that. It's completely disconnected from reality. People who are living this government's inflationary crisis, for 8 years, they did nothing to control spending. They created inflationist measures, and so today, everything costs far too much. What do they want to do is radically increase the carbon tax with the complicit help from the Bloc Québécois. Is there anyone in this government who can finally rise up and say that this finally makes no sense? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I would like to say, very seriously, is that the Conservatives voted against all measures that support families, the Canada Childcare Benefit, investments that we made in housing. We're still waiting on a vote on C-56 that will allow us to control grocery prices. Tax credits for more housing. On this side of the House, we are taking care of people every single day. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, Israel has the right to defend itself. We have to be realistic. The conflict in Gaza is not going to subside in the short term. We must also be realistic about the inadequacy of the humanitarian aid that is trickling in at the moment. Canada must ask Israel for a humanitarian truce until aid can reach the civilians in need. The UN made a request to this effect last week. The European Union is currently evaluating it. Will Canada support this idea of a humanitarian truce? The Honourable Minister for International Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's our collective duty to defend humanity, dignity, and the protection of all. We are firm on our position before this humanitarian crisis. Innocent civilians need more help, not less. That is the reason for which we announced a total care package of $60 million to meet the needs of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in adjacent regions. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, the humanitarian aid has to get there in the first place. Everyone would prefer peace to war. But it would not be realistic to ask Israel for a complete ceasefire while its population is not safe. On the other hand, it would be realistic for Canada to support the United Nations' more nuanced request. What we are talking about here is a temporary multilateral and humanitarian truce, a truce to get food supplies through, to protect humanitarian corridors, to protect aid distribution areas where NGOs will be safe. It's a reasonable proposal, Mr. Speaker. Will Canada support a humanitarian truce? The Honourable Minister. We would like to remind everyone about why humanitarian corridors have to remain open, unencumbered, so that humanitarian assistance can rapidly reach those who need it the most. We have been encouraged by the presence of the second humanitarian convoy that went over the Rafah border crossing. We ask that this continue unencumbered so that humanitarian assistance can reach those who need it. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. That wasn't really clear. Was that yes or no? Anyway, we'll speak after question period. Since the horrific and tragic events of the 7th of October, there has been growing hatred in Canada and Quebec between pro-Israel and pro-Palestine groups. Hateful graffiti, swastikas, repeated intimidation of people of the Jewish or Muslim faiths. It is as if we wanted to transpose here in Quebec and Canada the war, hatred, and division that are unfortunately taking part in the Middle East. As if we needed more division on this issue here. Will the Prime Minister appeal for calm before a tragedy occurs, as was the case in the States or in France? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for that very important question. This is something that everyone is concerned with at the moment. There is no place for speech or violence here in Canada. We know that Jewish and Muslim, Israeli and Palestinian communities are hurting right now. They are scared, and we should all work together because, first and foremost, we are Canadians and we should be here for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Then I have Député de King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister's high inflationary deficit and punishing tax hikes, seniors are being forced out of their homes and onto the streets. John, a senior, had a monthly mortgage payment of $1,000, but today it ballooned to $2,600. He was forced to sell his home. But with rent increases, he can't find an affordable apartment. He will soon find himself homeless. This Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Has he finally learned that the budget doesn't balance itself?
De la ministre.
Mr. Speaker, it's fascinating that the honourable member will ask a question about seniors trying to find a place that they can afford when her party put forward a housing plan that mentions seniors precisely 0 times. Mr. Speaker, over the course of my time in this chamber, I have seen the Conservatives oppose taking the age of retirement from 67 back to 65. I have seen them oppose increases to the guaranteed income supplement. I have seen them oppose increases to the old age security pension to go up for seniors 75 and more. If it's finally time that the Conservatives recognize seniors need help, I welcome it, but they're new to this game, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The carbon tax, which raises the price of everything and which the Bloc wants to increase radically, is making Quebecers poorer. After 8 years of this government, a young retiree has to go back to work to pay for her heating and grocery bills. She says, "All my bills are higher." It's expensive to vote for the Bloc Québécois. The Prime Minister must finally understand that his inflationary policies are hurting people. When will he abandon his costly carbon tax? Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister for the Environment. Mr. Speaker, you know, sometimes people watching us develop a certain cynicism when it comes to politics, and it's when we hear this kind of rhetoric from the member on the other side, who was a member of a provincial government that was the first in North America that created a carbon tax. She fought for a carbon tax, not only in Quebec, but around the world. And all of a sudden, the weather vane shifts to the other side, which creates a lot of cynicism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I hand the floor to the Honourable Member, I would like to encourage those who have already asked questions to allow other people to speak. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Well, here we are in our great Canada. Retired seniors have to go back to work to be able to pay for their basic needs, like food and heat. It's shameful. That's the reality after 8 years of this Liberal government supported by the Bloc Québécois. Quebec is a province most affected by inflation for the 4th month in a row. It's expensive to vote for the Bloc Québécois. When will the Prime Minister cancel his disastrous carbon tax, which radically increases the price of absolutely everything, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that it's difficult to call Jean Charest a dangerous bloquiste. It's under that premier that she created and defended the carbon tax. She believed in climate change. Now she no longer believes in it. She believed in carbon pricing. She believed in implementing programs to support public transit for the electrification of transit. Now she believes in nothing, just because she's part of a ideologically opposed party to climate change.
L'honorable député de Vancouver-Est.
The Auditor General has reinforced findings from 2 Polera reports of racist outcomes in Canada's immigration system. Regional disparities continue to create longer processing times for those in sub-Saharan Africa. Meanwhile, new AI tools discriminately double wait times for Haitian citizens. The Liberals said they will address regional disparities in 2016, but the Auditor General found they have done nothing. This is outrageous. People's lives are hanging in the balance. Will the government take immediate action to put in place an independent ombudsperson to end the systemic racism in IRCC?
L'honorable ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it is important not to deny the reality that systemic racism exists within IRCC, as well as the fact that it exists throughout the public service, and we need to address it. This has real impacts on people that are looking to come to Canada, as well as some of the facts that the member opposite has stated. I would note that, thankfully, the Auditor General produced a report that will help as a guide. I've asked my Deputy Minister to continue her work in fighting systemic racism. I would also note that some of the thresholds have gone up in Western Africa since the reference point, but it's not enough, and we've got to do better.
Excellent.
L'honorable député de Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister must call for a ceasefire in Israel and Palestine now. We must protect children from injury, death, and the desolation of their futures. Canada's voice used to be a leader that stands up for human rights and dignity for all, not standing on the sidelines like we're seeing now. If Canada doesn't act, more families will mourn as the violence will escalate and already spilled into Lebanon and the region. And the government's lack of concern from Canadians trapped in Gaza is disturbing. Why won't the Prime Minister call for a ceasefire now? How hard is it to say the word ceasefire?
The Honourable Minister for International Development.
Western country to provide humanitarian assistance to all civilians in the region. On top of that, we topped up with an additional $50 million. And as a result of that early example, our friends and allies have been incentivized to follow our example. I just spoke to the German Minister for International Development, and she told me that this morning Germany announced $50 million to help civilians caught in this conflict. We are providing the leadership necessary to get aid flowing, to fight for the respect of international humanitarian law, and we're putting our money where our mouth is to get life-saving materials to civilians in the region.
L'honorable député de Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are concerned about the cost of housing and finding a home at the price they can afford. While the leader of the opposition continues to blame municipal mayors and councillors, we are committed to work side by side with all levels of government to increase housing supply. Can the minister explain how he is working with the local government to build more homes in my community of Brampton?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
I want to thank my honourable colleague, not only for his question today, but for hosting myself and the Prime Minister last week, where we announced an investment of $114 million alongside Mayor Patrick Brown for the City of Brampton. This investment, importantly, Mr. Speaker, is going to fast-track the construction of more than 3,100 homes over the next 3 years and more than 24,000 over the next decade. Mr. Speaker, by working with municipal councils and identifying the most ambitious plans in the country, we're going to be able to solve Canada's national housing crisis, starting right in that members' community in the City of Brampton.
L'honorable député de Foothills.
After 8 years, farmers can no longer carry the burden of this NDP Liberal government. In a letter to the Prime Minister, vegetable farmers warned Canadians of why this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. The price of fresh vegetables is already up 12%, and the Liberals' front-of-pack warning labels on food will cost the industry $2 billion. Wow. But now the Prime Minister's nonsensical package changing on produce will increase the price of food 30%. Costs will be passed directly to the consumer. So why is the Prime Minister increasing the cost of food by 30%?
L'honorable ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. And he's fully aware that we're dealing with the food chain in order to deal with the cost and price of food. And we understand the price of food is too high. But, Mr. Speaker, if we do not deal with climate change, it is a major problem with the cost of price of food. When you have floods in British Columbia, you have fires in British Columbia, you have straw worth $300 a bale across the prairie. There's no possibility of keeping food prices down when you have extreme weather conditions. We are and will continue to deal with climate change.
L'honorable député de Foothills.
There is no chance of keeping food prices low if you keep adding red tape and bureaucracy and carbon taxes on farmers. Farmers can't afford increased carbon taxes and red tape, and neither can Canadians who are already struggling to put food on the table. The price of beef and fresh vegetables is up 12%. The carbon tax will cost Canadian farmers close to $1 billion by 2030. It's this simple. You increase costs on farmers, food goes up. You increase costs on retailers, food goes up. Why is this Prime Minister not worth the cost? Because he's increasing food by 30%. Exactly. Why?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We know that climate change has many times the impact on general and food inflation than the carbon price has. but you don't see Conservatives jumping up and down to raise ambitions on fighting climate change. Why is that, Mr. Speaker? When Canadians want more action on climate change, they're regressive and promote climate denial. Let me also clarify that the vast majority of low and middle income families get more money back than they pay through the quarterly rebate. So when Conservatives want to take away those payments, who are they actually advocating for?
Exactly.
Colleagues, member from Dufferin-Caledon, all colleagues, please. Let us keep our comments to the time that you have the microphone when you have the floor. The honourable member from Hastings, Lennox Addington.
Canada is an agricultural powerhouse. It is something that farmers of Eastern Ontario and across Canada are all very proud of. After 8 years, this Liberal NDP government's fanatical pursuit of failed, ideologically driven economic policy is crushing Canadian farmers, and too many families can't even afford nutrition food. The reality is, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So, Mr. Speaker, when will this morally and politically bankrupt government wake up and stop punishing farmers with inflation-inducing carbon tax?
Secrétaire parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives really cared about grocery prices, then why aren't they supporting our Affordability Act in this House? They've stated repeatedly over and over again that they're going to vote against measures that will increase competition and bring down food prices for Canadians. Are they to expect us to believe that common sense means working against the interests of Canadians? We're fighting for affordability for Canadians every step of the way. The Conservatives should get on side and support our Affordability Act.
L'honorable député de la Beauce.
Monsieur le Président, après 8 ans. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, the government is punishing Canadians with its harmful tax. Canadians are having trouble feeding their families, and demand for food banks has shot up. For the 4th month in a row, Quebec is the most affected by inflation. That's what happens when the Bloc Liberal coalition is insisting on imposing a tax and wants to radically increase prices. It's expensive to vote for the Bloc. Will they cancel their infamous tax today? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's unbelievable to see a colleague from Quebec refuse to believe in global warming. Heating of the oceans, concerns in the fisheries sector, species at risk, tornadoes that destroyed our infrastructure along shorelines. They have no plan. They would cut all the plants. That's what the Conservatives are like. Dear colleagues, please, if I could ask you once again not to speak before being recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, last Saturday in Quebec, organizations and unions protested to demand an end to closed work permits for temporary foreign workers and their right. Closed permits put workers in a state of total dependence on their employer, and unfortunately, some employers take advantage. The Bloc Québécois has finally succeeded in bringing this issue to committee. Can we count on the government to tell temporary foreign workers listening to us that we're working on solutions and that closed permits will soon be a thing of the past? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I very much appreciate the question from my colleague. When it comes to temporary foreign workers, these are people who come here temporarily to work in agriculture and other very important sectors like tourism. It should be noted that the program we have now is not the program we saw under the Harper government. And when it comes to sectoral work permits. We have a system in place to protect workers, as well as requirements for businesses who have to obey them. The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. We need answers, Mr. Speaker. Closed permits not only lead to abuse, but also to situations that just don't make sense. Radio Canada raised a good example. Mr. Bérard from Mauritius. He works in Beauce, and he wants to stay there, but the factory where he works is closing. Because he has a closed employer-specific permit, he can't look for a job except in another plant with the same company. Either he'll have to leave the region, or he'll have to leave Quebec because he's losing his job. Does the government not agree that we need to put an end to these situations that just don't make sense? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, I appreciate the question from my colleague, and I'm very sympathetic to it. We have temporary foreign workers in Canada, and we have improved the quality of inspections. We're working with support organizations for migrant workers in the country. We've also opened up opportunities for people to access permanent residency. We're working on it. The Honourable Member for St. Margaret South.
For 8 years, the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia said that homelessness has gone up by 400% in Halifax since 2019 because the cost of everything has gone up, which has been caused by this NDP Liberal government. And even Atlantic Canada Liberal MPs agree the cost of living crisis is caused by the carbon tax. This Prime Minister is just not worth the cost, and Canadians are suffering. When will the NDP Liberal government axe a carbon tax, so Canadians can keep their homes?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, you know, it's fascinating. I was with the head of the Affordable Housing Association for Nova Scotia just a couple of weeks ago when we were announcing a $79 million investment in Halifax that's going to build more homes in that city. It happened to be on the location of an affordable housing project that only exists because it was funding through the federal government's National Housing Strategy. If the honourable member wants to address housing policy, I would suggest he talks to some of his colleagues who plan to raise taxes on home builders and cut funding for home building. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to make the investments necessary to put a roof over the head of Canadians. I hope he gets with the times and joins us.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government driving up the cost of living in Atlantic Canada, this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Liberal MPs from Atlantic Canada have again decided to punish us by quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents per litre. Atlantic Canadians have had enough of the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister now admit the carbon tax is punishing Atlantic Canada and the most vulnerable people in our society?
That's it.
Now is probably as good a time, specifically right now, to remind this House that just about every member on that side of the House ran, of course, on a carbon tax. They had some way of going about it where you would collect, to remind me if you could, green points that would go to some sort of government-run Amway catalog that you could collect for some sort of greeny things that would be selected by the government. I can only assume that members from that side of the House would form this government committee where you could cash in your points. And anyway, we prefer on this side of the House to put cash back into the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, if RBC takes over HSBC, it'll mean that Canada's #1 bank will swallow up Canada's #7 bank and its 800,000 mortgage customers in one big gulp. What does that mean for Canadians? Well, this week's variable mortgage rates show that HSBC's variable mortgage rate is 6.4% compared to RBC at 7.15. That means for a family in Toronto or Vancouver with $500,000 mortgage will pay over $312 more per month over the $1,000 they're paying when they remortgage. Will this minister reject this merger, or will she prove once again that this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost?
Yeah!
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance takes her role as regulator of the financial sector very seriously. As the Department of Finance stated on November 29th of last year, the Minister of Finance's decision on the acquisition will be informed by all required regulatory review processes, including those administered by the Office of Superintendent for Financial Institutions and the Competition Bureau. I want to assure everyone that our government is committed to supporting competition because we know competition is in the best interests of Canadians.
L'honorable député de West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, international, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing causes severe harm to species such as wild Pacific salmon and the oceanic white-tipped shark. It not only causes economic harm to the thousands that rely on the regulated fishing industry, it also further endangers at-risk species and impacts Indigenous communities that rely on certain fish stocks for food, social, and ceremonial purposes. Can the Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard provide an update to this House on the critical work our government is doing to combat international illegal fishing?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question and his strong advocacy for fish species at risk. This fall, Fisheries and Ocean Canada successfully led the first high seas patrol to detect and prevent illegal fishing in the North Pacific. This operation led to the seizure of over 3,000 illegally fished shark fins. Our message is clear. Canada will continue to fight illegal fishing by foreign actors both in Canada and abroad.
L'honorable député de Brantford.
Mr. Speaker, the RCMP ended the SNC investigation due to this Prime Minister's refusal to gain access to cabinet documents. It doesn't stop there. During my recent inquiry with the Auditor General, the NDP Liberal Cover-Up Coalition adjourned the meeting, leaving crucial questions unanswered. Over the last 8 years, this Prime Minister has spent years concealing his role in the SNC scandal. He is not worth the cost. When will he finally produce the documents as requested by the RCMP?
I want to remind all members, please, to refrain from using mock names. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the RCMP have confirmed, there is no active investigation. The case was fully looked into and is now closed. And as the member opposite knows, all RCMP operations are taken independently.
Hear, hear. L'honorable député de Brantford-Brant.
Mr. Speaker, that response is the opposite definition of transparency and accountability. In 2019, after being found guilty of breaching the Conflict of Interest Act, the Prime Minister claimed he took full responsibility for his mistakes. Yet here we are after 5 years, and the RCMP confirms that the Prime Minister refused to release all the documents as requested. Canadians have questions, and unlike this NDP Liberal Cover-Up Coalition, Conservatives want answers. What is he hiding?
Before we do go to the Honourable Minister, I do want to remind all Honourable members once again to please refrain from using mock titles. The Honourable Minister for Justice and Attorney General for Canada.
Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that question, but I also appreciate who it's coming from. The member opposite is somebody who I've worked with in the past on the Justice Committee, somebody who knows the criminal justice system in this country and the difference between political operations and policing operations. There's a bright line in a democracy between those two things. In a democracy, we don't instruct police officers how to do their job. The RCMP conducted an independent investigation, concluded there was no further investigation merited. We trust the RCMP in this country to do their jobs independently. I wish my colleague opposite would do the same.
Honourable Member of Parliament from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, we see that these Liberals can't help but line the pockets of their friends. And this Prime Minister simply isn't worth the cost to Canadians. His green tech slush fund is being used to funnel money into the pockets of insiders. Now, the chair of the board, who's a friend of the Prime Minister, Annette Verscheren, has received millions of dollars from the same fund for which she is chair. How many more Liberal insiders have gotten rich from this slush fund?
Who got rich?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I've said in this House numerous times now, when the minister learned about the allegations of mismanagement at SDTC, he immediately acted to hire a third party to do an independent, impartial review. It came back with a report. Those findings are now being turned into corrective actions, which are part of an implementation plan that SDTC is implementing by December. And let's make one thing clear, Mr. Speaker, we expect the highest standards of governance from all of our federal agencies.
Good answer.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's SMEs represent over 95% of the province's businesses, and they're still struggling. During the pandemic, our government was there to support them, helping to pay employees' salaries, offering rent assistance and emergency loans. Can the minister responsible for the Economic Development Agency for Quebec's regions tell us how CED is supporting our SMEs and actively participating in the economic recovery of all of Quebec's regions? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague said, our government knows that SMEs are still facing challenges. I'm proud that CEDs support them in every region of Quebec, including $212 million for more than 580 projects within the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program, $33 million in the Community Futures Program, which funds more than 50 CFDCs and 8 business development centers. We know that supporting economic development in our regions means supporting local jobs. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, the City of Coquitlam has had to foot the bill to save affordable homes because the federal government is missing in action. Renters in my community are being displaced at alarming rates as their homes are being sold off to for-profit developers. Homelessness in Coquitlam is soaring. We cannot afford to lose more co-ops and rentals. And the Liberals are turning their back on local governments who are doing their best to protect low-income renters. How many more people need to go homeless before they take this housing crisis seriously?
L'honorable ministre.
Mr. Speaker, I sincerely thank my honourable colleague for her concern regarding the need to invest in affordable housing and to invest in homelessness prevention. I'd remind her that we had the opportunity not only to make an initial multi-billion-dollar investment to address homelessness in Canada, but then to double it. Shamefully, certain parties in this chamber voted against that measure. Mr. Speaker, this builds on 8 years of work where we have returned to the affordable housing space through the National Housing Strategy and now are working very closely with local governments, municipalities from coast to coast to coast, to build more homes. I look forward to doing that in cooperation with the NDP.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, everyone's talking about the urgent need to act on climate change and the energy transition. Citizens are being asked to take action. But when it's time for them to be reimbursed for their portion of the Canadian grant for greener homes, that urgency falls by the wayside. The provincial portion is reimbursed within 2 months of filing documents. At the federal level, citizens have had to wait more than 18 months to get their money. It's almost impossible to talk to a public servant. When people get through, they're being told that staff is swamped. Mr. Speaker, at a time when citizens are struggling to make ends meet, can the minister just make sure his staff solves the problem once and for all? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for Richmond Arthabaska for his question. I recognize that there were problems with the program's implementation, but since then, Natural Resources Canada set up measures to improve access to the program so that people can renovate their homes, make them more energy friendly, and save money on their energy bills and reduce greenhouse gases, which the Conservatives opposed, and in fact they'd get rid of that program if they took power. We'll continue to work with all Canadians on climate change and affordability.
That is the end of question period. We have a point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Earlier in question period, twice you referenced a mock title that members are not supposed to use. And I know a number of us are confused as to what that may be. So I'm wondering if the Speaker could clarify what that term is so that we cannot make that same mistake again going forward.
I thank the honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's for that. The term that was being referenced, I will get back to the honourable member from Brantford Brant, as well as to the member from South Shore St. Margaret's on this shortly, and I will share that with the House at that time. I thank the member from South Shore St. Margaret's for raising this issue. The issue that had come up in terms of a mock name that I was referring to was the NDP, I hope I got this right, the NDP Liberal Cover-Up Coalition. I might not have the term correctly, but that is what I was referring to.
It being 3:16, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at the second reading stage of Bill C-50. Call in the members. May I invite all members to take their seats? The question is as follows. Mr. Wilkinson, seconded by Ms. Martinez-Ferrada, moved that Bill C-50, an act respecting accountability, transparency, and engagement to support the creation of sustainable jobs for workers. May I dispense with the reading of this motion? The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Ms. Gould. Ms. Gould.